Shadiversity.
Greetings, I'm Shad, and we have a very interesting sword to review in this video. This is the Phillipe IV Sword from Deepeeka, although this actually comes to us by way of Kult of Athena, which we have an affiliate link in the description below if you're interested in this sword or really any sword. Kult of Athena has one of the widest range of swords you can find. So like I said, this one was sent to us to review. Specifically, though, I requested it of them. They said they're willing to send me some things to check out, and I was like, well, I want to check out this bad boy, because there are some very interesting things that I just had to check out. And you might notice one thing. This is a thick boy. This is a very thick-bladed sword. And with it being so thick, the handling on this thing is actually gorgeous. It's also much shorter. I'm getting more and more interested in the shorter range of swords. I wouldn't call it a short sword, though. This cutlass here falls more comfortably in the short sword kind of range, and you can see that this Phillipe IV Sword is just that tad bit bigger. In fact, I'd almost call it, though, the shortest range of arming sword. So comparing this to your more standard length of arming sword, it's, you know, just coming in that tad little bit shorter, but still long enough to absolutely be a very functional arming sword. I am interested, though, in getting a proper short sword, because here is the thing. Short swords don't necessarily do less damage than arming swords. It's about weight distribution. And if you get a chunky enough short sword, you can get one that absolutely chops as well as longer swords. And in regards to weight distribution, you can probably see why I've been so interested in this Phillipe IV Sword. So this is based on 14th century style swords, and it has one of my favorite kind of profiles, which is really kind of wide base, strong taper. I am liking these more and more. We got to taste out this kind of profile sword already with Todd Cutler arming sword, and this Phillipe IV Sword, as you can see, takes it to another level. A little bit shorter, but wider. And there are some other really interesting things that caught my interest. The big thing is the price point. This sword comes in, it ranges, because I think you can, if you're depending on choosing to get it sharpened or not, it ranges from like 130 to about 200 US, which is a steal. That is a great price for a sword. Having said that, you will get what you pay for. There are some kind of cosmetic flaws that I would not be as forgiving if this sword was in a much higher price point. But the fact that it's so affordable, okay, you have my interest. And then on top of that, the weight on this. This is like, it has some very impressive geometry on this blade to make it feel so functional and maneuverable. Especially with how wide it is. It has come, oh yes, very sharp, very sharp. So I can't wait to put this to the test. We don't have a second sample to do a full destruction test, but we will be doing our standard stress testing on this, cut testing, and handling with a more detailed review of the fit and finish. My overall feelings of the general look, okay, without going in very detailed, which we will, but just my overall thoughts, right? I love the colors on this. Red handle, brass crossguard, and pummel just makes it pop. This is a gorgeous looking sword, and also something that I found quite impressive. This is actual etching. These letters have been etched into the steel. With cheaper swords, it's usually just kind of like screen printed, or just like they do a basic kind of print on the sword that can wear off over time. No, this is actually etched inset into the steel, which is a extra level of quality I wouldn't generally expect with such an affordable sword. I wouldn't necessarily, yes, it's cheap, but cheap usually implies low quality. There are some defects that does indicate, you know, its price point a little bit, but I actually wouldn't call this a cheap sword in the sense of being low quality, just with how solid it is, how good it looks, how much the weight is just beautiful. This is actually a very sophisticated, well-executed sword in regards to that weight distribution and the blade geometry, which is why I'm very keen to find out how well it cuts and performs, because if it does well in those categories, for its price, This sword is banger. This is actually really, really cool. It's made out of C60 high carbon steel, which I haven't got to review yet. Usually we're more dealing with 1060, but 1060 steel can perform really well. And so the carbon grade of C60 seems like that's going to be perfectly fine. If the heat treatment and tempering has been done well on it. We have a spring temper on it, and so I am very excited to start putting this through its paces. How are you, Tyranth?
I'm pretty good, Shad. How are you?
I'm very, very good. Hey, quickly, what do you think of this sword?
I'm actually a big fan of this. I actually didn't know the price point of this, but if it's in the 200 range, that's actually that's good. The blade profile is beautiful. I'm actually a fan of it. I like the oak shot type 18C. It's one of my favorite swords. And this isn't that, but it's similar. In terms of the fit and finish of the handle and crossguard and stuff, it's actually really good. The sheath as well is money. Like, that's pretty good.
This is actually really nice. It's actually not one of those floppy sheaths. It's got a wood core with leather on the inside to help it grip it when it slides in.
Yeah, and this is actually a really big bonus, especially around the 200 price point.
200?
That usually, like, what was the one we got? The Ronin Ronin Falchion or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah. The leather sheath it came in was dog crap.
Which is kind of, sadly, a staple of, like, European swords, which annoys me because katanas always
come with a sheath, I'll say it, yeah.
But this one, hey, this is pretty good.
Look, I'm just going to double check that price point because I'm starting to question myself. The Phillipe IV Sword from Deepeeka, yeah, it is 132 to 196, and I think that's depending on the type of finish you might be able to select on it.
That's really good. The only issue I would have with something like this is because we have such a huge, like, that is a thick boy right down there, and means that taper to the tang is going to be all the more aggressive, which I think it should be all right, but hey, like, this is ridiculous, actually.
I'm very excited to see how it goes. But look, there are some flaws that to mention cosmetic, and the big one that I can see is the polish on the blade. They've obviously changed direction close down to the bottom sometime.
I think this is actually from...
it might be.
It'll be from this.
That is odd.
But you're kind of right in this regard, because things like the grind lines, they're not perfect at all.
Yeah.
Even like the consistency of the edge is not perfect either. But that, I guess, that adds to the handmade feel.
It does, and that's the thing. Like, it actually makes it a little bit more authentic to medieval swords, because most medieval swords were handmade and had cosmetic little defects like that. Like, you would get a wavering line on the fuller, but that's actually pretty darn straight. It's close.
Well, I mean, for the price point of 200, that is perfectly fine.
But I do see some waving lines on the edge here, but very minute.
But if that was on like a 5, 6 and up sword, I would be much less forgiving about that. But for a $200 sword, hey, that's pretty good.
I mean, the wrap, super tight. It's stitched, right? But there's no really aggressive lip on the stitch. The leather isn't fraying out in any direction. It's actually very smooth, very tight. One of the other things is the polish is a little inconsistent in some parts. And like you see kind of some marks here and everything. So there are those things to mention. The fuller doesn't end in a really nice, clean kind of section there. And there are some kind of polishing defects here and there. But for the price points,
that's all fine.
I can overlook those very happily.
In terms of the edge, though, that thing feels wicked sharp.
Super sharp.
Now, did you want to do the hardness test now?
I want to do a standard cut test.
Okay.
And then we're going to do a hardness test. And you might be wondering, what do we have right here that people might not have seen?
This is our cut test rig.
Our cut test rig, but we're upping the ante to standardize our cut tests, and we use what are called cardboard reinforced pool noodles. These things are actually a dog to cut through.
Yes.
So, Tyranth, we've run into a bit of an issue.
Have we?
Yes, well, we've discovered that the cardboard reinforced pool noodle test has a problem because not all cardboard is equivalent. I thought I was using the same thickness, but in actual fact, it turns out the resistance of different cardboard is quite stark. So much so that we actually retested the Romance of Men katana on this setup, and this time it didn't get through a single one.
Right.
And with the exact same force putting in, same angle, everything like that. The only explanation for it not getting through any this time is the cutting medium.
Yep.
Dang it. And no sword got through any this time, including the Phillipe sword that we're testing and the Romance of Men, which previously got through 3. So that basically means we need to re-engineer this issue, find a new cutting medium to find something that we can measure consistently. And until then, we can either put the cutting rig tests on hold or come back when we have a solution. Ballistic gel.
Ballistic gel.
That might work for a more uniform cutting medium on the cutting rig. The cutting rig isn't going away though, because it does give us a consistent amount of power, and that means we can test edge retention on the steel bar. So we're going to do that, but before we start damaging the sword, we need to test how well it cuts in the hand.
So we're going to do our normal cuts?
Normal cuts, which we were going to do anyway, just means we don't have a uniform kind of...
It means now Shad has to swing a sword around, okay?
I was going to swing it around anyway, what are you talking about? I just like the scientific method, Tyranth.
Go on.
This is a sword that is made to be swung in one hand.
Yes.
That was actually, that's not bad. That's not bad.
That was.
That wasn't great. Let me do that one again.
That was not good either.
That one was easy.
Okay. There we go.
That was nice. That's nice. That's nice. Still tearing.
Something interesting that I wanted to bring up is I said I liked the tip, which I do. I do like the tip. However, upon closer inspection, it actually changes the blade geometry. It's actually quite thin all the way up to the fuller, and then when we get to that tip, it actually flares out quite a bit, which is interesting.
Technically, that should reduce its cutting capacity while improving its thrusting rigidity.
Yes, and the reason why it will reduce that cutting capacity is just because it gets thicker.
It's thicker. All right. That's a very nice brigandine hoodie you're wearing.
It is, isn't it? Now, if you wanted to pick up your very own Tyranth Red brigandine hoodie, you can get them in the link in the description. We've got a limited time. They're not going to be available forever, so if you want to pick one up, now is the time. I look good, don't I?
It's almost like you're wearing your actual brigandine.
It is.
I can hardly tell the difference.
It's identical. You can't even tell the difference. It's all right. It's all right. Well, because my closest point of comparison for this particular blade is actually the Todd Cutler one. It's very similar. I did somewhat of a mini review of it actually on the behind the scenes content, so you can actually watch that if you sign up and become a member. And this is very close. I'm not going to say it's better, because I don't think it is.
The price point is vastly different.
Yes, the Todd Cutler one. I don't know if they're available. People commented on that if they're available. I don't actually think they're available anymore, but that was like 1,000. This is nowhere near that.
I should say 1,000 Australian.
1,000 Australian.
It was like 500 or 700 euros. I can't remember.
Which is quite a large price difference, obviously. But this is pretty close. It's pretty close.
In performance, but a lot more affordable.
In terms of finish, though, Todd's is obviously in a different league. But why don't we do some water bottles? I'm interested to see how this thing goes with them, because it's quite sharp.
I want to do another noodle.
I'm never going to get tired of watching you fail at horizontal cuts.
I'm still cutting it, shut up.
This is staying in the video because I'm going to teach him right now. All right, the problem is...
Another one! You suck as a teacher!
Yeah. Yeah, so...
Horizontal water bottle. Won't even try. Like, ooh, look at me, I'm doing. But I got, only what, 4 times?
Because pool noodles, I've only seen you do it a handful of times.
Oh, I've done heaps of pool noodles.
I can recite them. Oh, that's nice. That was nice.
Ooh, that was butter. I didn't even feel that. See, that one you did hear more, and that was angle. That was bad angle.
Ooh. That was nice. I liked that. That's nice. All right, we'll do one more. What should I do? What should I do, Shad?
Upwards angle.
I was going to do reverse edge.
Oh, that's fun. We should do more reverse edges.
It's pretty good.
Yeah,
that was wicked.
You gave me so much crap for hitting the pipe.
Look at that.
You gave me heaps of crap for doing that. Now look what he does.
Look at that. That edge angle is perfect.
No.
I haven't done a reverse edge with such short swords before. It's actually hard. That's fine.
No, it didn't damage the blade this time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you're telling me that $3,000 katana thing about rolled edges, and I just did a perfect reverse edge?
That wasn't perfect. All right. See, one of Tyranth's...
Let's show him. Look at that. Clean.
One of Tyranth's things that he struggles with is his aim. You might say speed and power, but we've got lots of times when it comes to aim, and he knows it.
What I'm going to do right now is, because Shad is annoying me, I'm going to throw up the times when Shad has smashed the PVC, when Nate has smashed the PVC.
And now you have. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, but at least when I did it, it was a perfect cut.
That wasn't a perfect cut. Perfect cut is actually landing the strike.
I did it one hand. I did it one hand. Yeah. That was all right.
When it comes to reverse edge.
Okay, I'm competitive now. Well, because that was high up before, remember?
Oh, yeah. Don't hit the pipe this time, Tyranth.
Well, if I do, I'll cut the pipe just as well.
Second try. Reverse edge is very important when it comes to combat and getting certain angles.
Yeah.
Like a downwards cut like this, right? To get like lots of angles, you need to lower your arm. But if you're on the reverse edge, you don't need to lower your arm, and you can just go like that. Whereas you're going down, you have to kind of roll with it. It goes on an angle or lower your arm. But reverse edge is like, whew.
I would recommend you doing some reverse edge cuts when you're cutting stuff, as it will help you just get better.
Oh yeah, it's just better edge alignment and...
Yeah. Okay, should we get to testing the edge?
Yes, but more overall impressions of just its handling from the cut tests. It has a learning curve. Because it's shorter, I had to adjust. But once I adjusted, not a problem at all.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really use one-handed swords very often. Like, I really don't. So there is a little bit of a steeper learning curve. The pommel, because I prefer to hold it a little bit down a bit more. Yeah. That was cutting. That's actually kind of some sharp edges there.
Yeah.
You were holding it up here, which is...
I didn't have an issue with it at all.
That was just me, and it's starting to dig in there a bit, you can see. But apart from that, it was pretty good. It was sharp, and it took out that PVC. Like I did a cut through PVC, perfectly fine.
And it didn't get damaged.
No tearing.
All right, but let's do a hardness test to see if it comes in at the rating it's supposed to. Okay, now we're going into some stress and abusive testing, specifically how well the edge holds up. We have doubled the springs on this, and that brings it to what, 30-something kilos of force?
Yes, 30 kilos, 60 pounds-ish, that sort of range. And
it is getting smashed into this galvanized steel pipe. You're smiling about that one.
It's a meme. As soon as you say it, everybody, yeah. Anyway.
So, I'm very interested to see how well the edge survives this. I'm expecting mild rolling, honestly.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
We have seen some more severe damage. We've actually seen kind of the three extremes. Big roll, mild roll, and no damage at all. No damage was on a 1060 Honshu sword.
Yes.
So this is in the, got the 60 rating carbon on it. It's just C60. So depending on how the heat treatment is, will determine how well the edge will survive this.
And the edge geometry, of course.
They rate this sword at a 48 to 52 Rockwell hardness.
Yep,
that's not bad.
Well, we can test that anyway.
We will be able to confirm that later on.
Yep.
But right now, we'll just see how well that plays out with its performance. Let's do it. 3, 2, 1.
So how'd we go, Shad?
Holy crap. Nothing.
Nothing.
No discernible damage at all. It barely bloodens it.
This is kind of how these swords should perform. They're not made for this. This is ridiculous. But when you get into the these high carbon steels, and when you get nice thick blades, good edge geometry, they seem to kind of perform the same. And galvanized steel pipe isn't the strongest steel out there, obviously. We have the steel, the actual steel square bar that we use, which absolutely destroys swords. This is a bit softer. So
we have seen swords roll on this, though.
We have.
With the equivalent force, and I kind of am starting to think this should be the... I would expect a well-made sword to survive this test. I'm starting to see.
I would agree.
Like if a 1060 sword, look, that's not the highest carbon steel that you can have in swords, right? If that can survive this test without any damage, that's almost making a baseline.
Okay.
I reckon.
Well, I think the worst sword that we've had perform so far on this test is the Taitsuki $3,000 katana, which was differentially hardened. Now, the hardening shouldn't make that much of a difference. However, because like, it should be more the edge geometry, I would say. But because we did test other katanas with the same blade profile and similar edge geometry, very close, and the only difference was the hardening, that's where I kind of draw that conclusion from.
I mean...
Because all the spring steel stuff is done fine.
Well, the Romance of Men katana did get slightly rolled. Like tiny bit of compression on. Not much, but it got more damage than this one.
I disagree with that because we used the Romance of Men katana against the steel breastplate, and we smashed it against that.
That's true as well.
And it was fine.
But on this test, it did get more damage.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, look, this is impressive.
It's impressive, but to be fair, this is what I expect.
$130 to $200 sword.
Yeah.
Okay, final thing is stress.
Okay.
Let's smash it into the block of wood.
It should survive that. It should be more than fine for that.
It should.
Let's do it.
We've damaged so many swords doing this. We're not trying to do full destruction on this one because we don't have a sample to destroy. So what we're going to be doing is our standard stress test, which is far more abuse than any sword would usually go through in its normal use, but we're not actively trying to break it. And as always, this is about how much the wood damages the sword, not how much the sword damages the wood. All right. Light hit. That felt solid. That does give me confidence to go a lot harder. I think you are going to love how this feels.
Really?
Yeah. That was some of the most solid feeling handles I've ever smashed into this thing.
The cuts were all right as well. Edge is fine.
And look, that last one I wasn't holding back, actually.
Yeah. To be fair though, these sorts of blade geometries do lend themselves really well to chopping into things.
I think you're going to be surprised.
All right. I'll just do a few quick hits. I think that's the best feeling sword that I've ever hit wood
That's
with.
what I'm saying. I was shocked at how nice the handle held together. Like, no vibration.
That was actually really nice. And if you're wondering what my reference point for this is, go back and check one of our videos where we literally chop down trees with swords. This is better than all of them. That was fantastic, actually.
I told you.
And look at that.
Look at that. Like, holy crap.
Yeah.
We might need to get B-roll of that.
Like I could actually just use this like an axe and cut through all these things.
That is shocking.
Yeah.
I mean, we usually praise the katana and it's held together. Is there any rattling at all?
Nope. We're good.
Holy crap.
100%. Everywhere.
I mean, we usually praise the katana for being one of the more comfortable handles in terms of vibration because of the way it's made. I've never had a European sword feel better than a katana.
I agree. This was absolutely fantastic.
But this legitimately feels better.
That's actually crazy.
What's going on?
Like,
it's a $200 sword!
How to describe how that felt? It felt like, imagine an axe, but as a sword. That's what that felt like. That was great.
No vibration.
Yeah, I am genuinely surprised about that.
Okay, wow. This legitimately might make this sword the most impressive sword in this price range I've ever reviewed.
The closest reference point I've got is the Todd Cutler one, and this is pretty good, especially when we're talking about different price brackets as well.
Yes, for its price, it's hard to give a sword because I want to give a sword rating, right? And part of me wants to give it just a flat out of 10 versus all other swords. But price point is such an important balancing thing to consider.
Right.
Because for its price point, this is nearly a 10 out of 10.
Yes. It's a hard one to put in that bracket because I'm not a fan of like single-handed swords for the most part. So in terms of pure quality, price to performance, all that sort of stuff, I'd be around the 8.
That's exactly. I was thinking if I was...
you get a good sheath, you get all that sort of stuff, brass fittings.
If I was to rate this against all other swords, I would be sitting on a 7 or an 8. I've seen much nicer sheaths. It is good it has a sheath. I've seen a pretty near flawless fit and finish. I'm probably sitting on an 8, which is damn high marks.
Yeah, and the thing that brings it to this sort of, this number is the price. If this was, you know, 600 US or something, different story here. But for 200 US or whatever, hey, that's pretty good. That's really good.
I would be happy to, and I don't want it to, you know, fleece me or anything. I would be happy to pay $400 for this sword. That's where I think it's kind of falling in.
No, 400 is a bit high. I'd probably in the 300 range because we've done a lot of Baylor Arms stuff and some windlass stuff, and they're all pretty good, and they're all in that kind of 300 range. So that's where I'd probably put this.
Okay, we have a hardness testing, and it's a scratch test. And so what this is, each one of these tools has a hard, you know, kind of file on it, and it will only scratch something that is softer than the tool itself. And so that's how you can determine the hardness of the edge.
So what we do is we start with the hardest edge, because if we start with the softest edge, then we'll ruin the file. So you start with this and then work your way down.
And so we don't want to scratch the blade too much.
So this one here is a 65 HRC.
So it should scratch the blade.
This one should, yeah.
Stop, I know it.
That one's biting in. That is a proper scratch. If I was pushing any harder, we would gouge out the blade.
Oh, that's... I like this sword now. I don't want to scratch it that much.
This one is a 60. So we'll do that right next to it. I can still feel that biting.
It's scratching.
You can feel that biting in. We'll go to a 55. Now this is where they say that the blade is actually in this range. Okay, it's biting a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, I can feel that biting. So when we go down to a 50, I think this is where it's probably going to be. Oh, it's still biting a little bit.
Still biting a little bit.
All right, well the next one's a 45.
And that's where it was kind of 40 something to 50.
Okay, so this is 45. This is...
Okay.
This... So it's in between the 45 to 50. That's
which is exactly, it was like 40 something and 52.
That's what they said.
That's exactly as, man, we scratched the blade.
It's a hardness test, Shad.
We didn't have to be that aggressive.
That's just how they're going to be.
That's just...
I know it's ugly, and I know you don't like it, but it's a hardness
test. I like
test.
this sword now. I want to keep it.
But that's exactly what they said. It's in that range. That's great.
Okay, now after handling it so much through this review, what do you think its weight is?
Well, I got a...
All right.
What am I getting? 9.
0.9?
0.9. Maybe it's a 1.1, but I feel like it's going to be a bit under.
You know, you might be right.
One-handed swords can be deceptive.
They can be deceptive. I am going to say 1 kilo.
Okay.
All right. If it's higher than any of that, I would be surprised.
Because it does not feel it.
It doesn't feel it. Okay. Holy crap. I'm surprised.
That's actually surprising.
That is really surprising. 1.26.
And that's like, that's a katana. That's a longsword range, like the Lockwoods around there. Like, 1.2 is a full...
Yeah, okay, the reason why this is impressive and why I wanted to ask Tyranth before we measured it is because it feels good. The fact that it feels lighter than what it is...
That's why I said 0.9. Usually I would say over 1 kilo, but with these one-handed swords, because all of that weight's there, it feels different. The
fact that it feels lighter is a testament to the quality of its design. Okay, if it can fool us like that, that means the balance on it is particularly nice. And the point of balance isn't that low either. That's shocking. Maybe it's the size of the sword that's doing it. Yeah. Because that's about, what, 3 inches up, point of balance?
Yeah.
About that. And so that means you still have the heft, but it feels light.
So I think in finality, this is for the price point, a really good sword.
It's a banger.
1.2 kilos. The hardness on the edge for the one that we got, bang on what they said. It cut like a beast in that wood. It felt fantastic.
I think we need to reappropriate the chart, and actually we're going to start rating our swords with our final reviews and put it on the chart. So let's see how this fits onto the other swords that we reviewed.
Sounds good.
All right, so this is going to be our official sword rating board to see how they stack up against one another. And we already have 2 on there, but this was initially for the cardboard reinforced pool noodle test, which we need to recalibrate that. So we're going to reappropriate it. And out of a 10, what would you have given the Taitsuki katana?
Out of 10.
Out of 10. And if for this
1.
rating, I would give it a 4.
1. It was crap.
It had a beautiful fit and
crap.
finish.
If we're comparing swords against all other swords that I use as swords...
3 out of 10 then. That's the compromise. Okay. What we're going to do with this rate, this is overall quality. We're not considering price point, but we will have the price next to the sword to show that if it got a high or a low review or a rating base, and then you can have a look at the price, that can help you calibrate as well. Romance of Men, out of 10.
At least a 9.
I would go 8 because its fit and finish isn't the greatest. It's got fake ray skin on it. It's got a pretty cheap habaki. Its blade is gorgeous.
Yes, but all of those things are on all katanas at this point. Like, it's
well,
very
that
hard.
should go into the consideration on all of them. I reckon 8 out of 10.
As a functional sword, 8.5. Out of all swords, for $180 US, I will personally buy one of them.
So, let's get there. Now for the Phillipe IV Sword at $130 to $196. Like I said, I'm sitting on an 8 out of 10.
The problem with the 8 out of 10 is we haven't done any proper
destruction testing.
On it. Yeah. Remember the Romance of Men? We couldn't break.
I mean, we messed up that blade a lot. We couldn't snap it.
Couldn't snap it, yeah.
Yeah. I guess I would give it then an 8 out of 10 and then open to adjustment if we ever do a full destruction on it.
Sure.
Because I gotta say, like, that's the most comfortable handle I think I've ever used on a sword. It actually got damaged less on the gal pipe than the Romance of Men.
By a tiny margin. Margin of error, literally. Yeah, it was pretty good. I'd say we can go for 8, but if we ever do a destruction test on it, obviously we might have to adjust that.
So 8 out of 10 for the Phillipe sword. And this is like, these are so close, I'm almost like this.
Sure.
It's hard for me to decide between those two, which is better. And I'm looking forward to adding more swords onto this thing.
What we might do as an exclusive for this episode is actually bust out a bunch of these and score all the swords that we've already
reviewed and give them a rating, and you can see where we do that.
Exactly.
That's a great idea.
So that's what we're going to do for exclusive content for this episode. So you can support us at any of the links down below. You can grab the Shadiversity official Brigandine if you wanted to as well. And I think that closes out the episode.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to see the Romance of Men get destroyed, check out that video right here. It survives pretty darn well. So you can see why we give it such a high rating. Hope to see you there.